Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at something very special indeed. Today we're going to be looking at the brand new wheelbase from Sim Lab. Now Sim Lab is one of those companies that have been around forever, it seems, in sim racing, and whatever they do, they always seem to do it right. And this year they're going to be releasing their brand new DDS TorqueSync wheelbase. Now, I've been very lucky indeed to be sent a pre-production version of this wheelbase, so it looks slightly different on the outside to the final release, but the internals are exactly the same. And the one we're going to be looking at is the DD26. And in this video, I'm going to share with you what I can, tell you what the wheelbase is like to use, and tell you what this wheelbase does, which I've never experienced before. But before we get into the video, the necessary disclosure for transparency: I am a Sim Lab ambassador, but before I was a Sim Lab ambassador, I was a Sim Lab customer. And this isn't going to be an in-depth technical video. I put a post out on my YouTube community page saying, I had one of these wheelbases. Does anybody have any specific questions? So I'm going to try and cover those in this video and tell you what it's like to use and race with as a sim racer. Now, pre-release is literally just around the corner, and I've had so many questions about this wheelbase, people asking me if I was actually going to get to test it. And from what I've read in the comments, people seem to be kind of delaying their next wheelbase purchase until they see what this one's like. So hopefully this video goes somewhere in helping you make your mind up whether this one is for you or something else. Now, at launch, there's going to be two versions of this wheelbase, and they're both going to be the Founders Edition, and it's a limited run. There's going to be the DD26 and the DD39. The numbers in the name of the wheelbase denote how much torque they've got. 26 Newton meters for that one, and the big boy has got 39. And with the Founders Edition, there's going to be some etching or engraving on the side of the wheelbase, I believe, with the number of that wheelbase. And you also get a zero play wheel side quick release included for free. So let's cover what they're going to cost you first of all. So this version I've got here, the DD26, that's going to cost you $14.99. That's euros or dollars including tax. And for the big boy, the DD39, that's going to be $19.99 euros and dollars including tax. So it's not cheap, but I would class this as a high-end wheelbase. On the front of the wheelbase, you can see you've got an LED ring, so that tells you when force is being applied. It illuminates, gets brighter the more Newton meters are being used, but it also displays telemetry from the sim regarding flags. On the rear of the wheelbase, we've got the power outlet, USB-C, a data pass-through, and an emergency stop. Now, you'll notice that this wheelbase is quite big, but there's a reason for that, because this wheelbase has the power supply in the wheelbase, so there's no power brick. And just for comparison purposes, this is the DD26 up against the SimiCube 2 Pro. So as you can see, it's noticeably bigger than the SimiCube 2, but you don't have this laying around on the floor. Now, that brings me on nicely to the power supply. So included in the wheelbase is a 1,500 watt power supply running at 350 volts DC. Now, again, to put that into some kind of context, and I'm not comparing it to other products, the Acertec Invicta wheelbase, which runs at 27 Newton meters, and the SimiCube 2 Pro that I've got runs at 25 Newton meters, their power supplies are 48 volts and round about 400 watts. So why have Sim Lab gone with a 1,500 watt, 350 volt power supply? Well, it's all about speed. So 400 watts with the Acertec and the SimiCube would be enough to get the wheelbase up to its maximum peak torque, 25, 27 Newton meters. But then that's it. It would run out of juice. So it's used all its power to get it up to peak torque. It doesn't have any more to then give you that speed if you need to change direction. So with the 1,500 watts, 350 volts, plenty to get it up to peak torque, but then you've got that headroom for those finer details and quick, snappy changes in direction. But just because it's got a 1500 watt power supply doesn't mean it uses 1500 watts. Average consumption is anywhere between 300 and 700. But it's, like I said, it's all about the headroom. Inside the wheelbase, there's also a fan to keep things cool. So the wheelbase itself has got a 24-bit encoder. Now, doesn't really mean much to me. I'm not a technical guy. But if you think about it, every revolution of the wheel, so every 360 degrees, there are 16.7 million points of reference. 16.7 million. And that's where all the detail is. So regarding mounting, this can be side mounted, bottom mounted, front mounted. The slots on the side of the wheelbase are the same as on many other aluminium profile rigs. At the moment, I've got mine bottom mounted. And somebody commented on my post when I said that I had the wheelbase, do Sim Lab have any plans to offer a shaft extension? Stop it, you're better than that. And yes is the answer. Sim Lab do have plans to release a shaft extension. So the wheelbase has full USB pass-through with a 2500 milliamp line. So any wheel on there with a screen will work. Even wheels such as the Porsche RSR, which need a power injection, that will work just fine. But Sim Lab have deliberately made this an open ecosystem so you can use whatever quick release on there that you like. Now, speaking of the quick release, Sim Lab have been very clever. The more expensive part of the quick release is actually attached to the wheelbase, and the more affordable part is the part that you would buy to attach to whatever wheel you've got. And I've got to tell you, it's absolutely superb. You know, it's so quick to swap wheels, and it says in the name of the quick release, zero play. There is literally zero play. But there's a couple of things with this wheelbase which make it stand out from any of the wheelbases that I've used. The first thing is the DDS torque sync. What does torque sync mean? Well, according to Sim Lab, so torque sync is their patented technology, and it translates game force commands into motor torque with extremely low latency and high precision. It preserves micro detail in force feedback effects, improves stability during transient events, and enhances on-edge car control. So I'll play a clip now where I try and demonstrate that. It's not that clear, but you get the idea. Now, if you've ever watched anybody on YouTube with the camera behind them pointing at their rig, you can see their hands on the steering wheel, but you can also see the steering wheel in the game. And as they move their steering wheel in their hands, there's a slight delay between that and the one that you can see on the screen. So the clip you're watching now is with torque sync turned down, and you can see a very, very slight delay. But then I turn on torque sync, turn it up, and you can see there's literally no delay between my hands on the wheel and what you can see in the sim. And obviously that means that what you're doing on the rig with the wheel is going to translate instantly in the sim, which means you're going to be more precise. And this wheelbase has also got telemetry force feedback, which I'd never used before. Now, again, I'm going to play you a clip to try and demonstrate how detailed that is. So we're here at the Nordschleife in the Porsche Cup car, and we're just sitting in pit lane at idle. So I turn the engine on with no telemetry force feedback. You can see on the graph, the white line represents the iRacing force feedback. And as we're idling and revving the engine, there's nothing until we go out on track and start driving. There's no force feedback. But we turn on the telemetry force feedback, and you can see as we're idling, you can see the wheel moving slightly. But when we rev the engine, well, you can see it move, and you can see it on the graph. And I know that's just in pit lane at idle. We're not really doing anything, but that kind of demonstrates the detail that's there. But the beauty of the telemetry force feedback, it's on top of the other feedback. So there is a slider in the software where you can increase the telemetry or reduce it, and it's a bit of a trade-off. So if you use 100% force feedback from the sim, you can't use any telemetry. So you'd maybe use 90% of the force feedback from the sim and 10% from the telemetry. Now, imagine this. You're at Road America in a GT3 car, towards the end of the lap, going round the kink, high speed turn, lots of downforce, force feedback's loaded up. But with the telemetry force feedback, when you go over the rumble strips with your right hand tyres, the force feedback is under load. But because of the power of the wheelbase and the telemetry force feedback, you still get the rumbles. Now, there's lots of things in the software regarding the telemetry force feedback that you can adjust. You know, road textures, curbs, engine vibrations, ABS, all that kind of stuff. Anything that you would usually find in SimHub, for example, with regards to haptics, you know, belt tensioners, tactile transducers, motion, that kind of thing. All that stuff that would normally give you a vibration, you now get it through the wheelbase. It is absolutely unbelievable. And somebody else mentioned in the post that I made about warranty. Well, with the DDS wheelbase, it's 4 years. Now, let's talk about what it's actually really like to use. So, setup, really easy, uses the Race Director software, which you can use with all your Sim Lab products. So, my wheels, pedals, wheelbase, they're all in there. And any of the settings within the Race Director software for the wheelbase, you'll be familiar with regards to rotation, slew rates, you know, dampening, inertia, friction, all that kind of stuff. But then there's another section for the telemetry force feedback. Dead easy to set up, no power brick to worry about, USB into the computer, USB 3, and away you go. Now, I've been tinkering with this for about a week, and I like my force feedback quite raw. I don't really use any dampening or anything like that. So it is really raw, really snappy. And I have never, ever experienced force feedback like this. Now, I've been very lucky to have owned and used many wheelbases whilst I've been sim racing. And I can honestly say that this blows them all out of the water. The feedback is just so detailed. Like I can feel things that I've never felt before. Like, who would have thought that road texture and curbs would have been so important? And only after using the wheelbase for about an hour, I got my first shock. So last week, I was racing in the Super Formula Light on iRacing at Spa. And when using this wheelbase, not only did I beat my previous best, I beat it by 6/10, which is a lot when you're already pushing. A very similar story when I was driving other cars on iRacing. I felt as quick as I'd ever felt, but I felt a lot more detail whilst doing so. So I've used this wheelbase on both iRacing and Le Mans Ultimate. Force feedback feels absolutely superb on both. Telemetry force feedback works perfectly on both, although on Le Mans Ultimate, I do add a little bit of dampening, a little bit of friction, just to take the edge off, but it's still super snappy, super detailed. Now, you might be sitting there now, you probably are thinking, I'm not buying what Dave's saying, it can't be that good, there's no way Dave ever gets that excited. But honestly, I'm really excited. There's no way I could go back to using normal force feedback after using this wheelbase. And you're also probably thinking, Dave's just trying to stitch us up, Dave's trying to sell us something. Well, that's not my job. You know, I'm not employed by Sim Lab. All I'm doing here is giving you my opinion as a sim racer. But if you're on the fence, don't dismiss it. Just hold off buying your next wheelbase if you can and try it. There's a few sim racing expos that you can go to. There's one in Chicago. There's one in Frankfurt. There's the Sim Formula in Holland. There's going to be an expo in the UK in January. If you can, if you're on the fence and you're looking at buying a new wheelbase, please do yourself a favour and try it. I guarantee you'll be blown away. And if you tried this wheelbase in Dortmund at the last expo and then you try it now, you will be amazed. It has come on so much in those few months. So before we wrap things up, I'll quickly touch on the steering wheel that's on there now. That's the GTSL. I will probably do a video on that down the line, but I've also had a few questions about that. So that's SimLab's brand new wheel, GT style wheel, rocker shifters, dual clutch, thumb encoders, 2 7-way funky switches, loads of buttons, absolutely superb wheel. Not that expensive, I mean, it's still expensive. It's about £500, but on the grand scheme of things, when you're talking sim racing, it's not that expensive. When I first got out of the box, I thought it felt a little bit cumbersome, but when I put it on the rig and got in my driving position, ergonomically, it was excellent. So anything that we've talked about, I'll leave links down below in the description so you can go and check them out. So I want to say a huge thank you to Sim Lab for whatever reason giving me access to this pre-production version of the wheelbase early and enabling me to be the first person in the world to create content about the wheelbase and share it with you. Honestly, I'm so grateful. But hopefully this video goes some way in helping you make your decision one way or the other. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great week. See you later. Cheers.